everybody. This is the K Drake Podcast. I'm your host, Chadillac, with guest host and fight analyst Miguel. Miguel, how are you doing today?
Terrific, eh? Glad to be back, Chad, for another one of these, and glad to be talking MMA wearing a little blast from the past. This is one of those affliction shirts that Randy Couture used to wear coming in the ring. Not actually Randy wore this shirt, but it's the same one, so it's like a 15-year-old shirt I pulled out of the closet. Just for you, Chad, just for you.
Thank you, Miguel. I really appreciate that. On this rainy, fleecy, nasty day in Indiana, it just makes me feel chipper and fine. Okay, so we're talking heavyweights in the UFC, and specifically we're talking about if your balls are hot, you get the spot. So
yeah, I mean, I can almost feel my balls heating up right now, just over the whole thing. You know what I mean? The bottom line is that, Derrick Lewis was able to create a soundbite that, went viral kind of thing. He parlayed it into a world title shot. The UFC needed a headline act for November 3rd. Okay, November 3rd sees the UFC at Madison Square Garden. And, the bottom line is they needed a headliner there for that card. And what they did is they got Cormier to sign to fight Lewis, kind of on short notice, Derrick Lewis, breaking through and then with the interview with the hot balls and stuff like that. They give him the title shot right away at the end. You got to give props to Derrick Lewis. I think he said, he's fought a couple of times this year. Taking home, he's already, he's been winning. He's 9-1, so he's been winning. He's taking home a couple $100,000 per fight already. So he's not, on the low end of the spectrum. But he's gonna make more for this fight than he made combined for all the other ones, right? So
yeah,
they're gonna get maybe $800,000, maybe $1 million for a world heavyweight title fight. So
no matter what, Lewis walks home with $1 million, no matter how you look at it, and that's more money than that guy ever dreamed about making in his life, and that's the truth. And he said as much. If
he didn't break his hand or walked out healthy from the last fight, and he did get beat up for a little bit. There was the question whether the commissioners would suspend him, for a medical suspension and stuff, but they're going to get the fight off. So it didn't happen that way. But the bottom line is if he was healthy and the UFC called and said, hey, you want a shot at the title? What are you going to do, say no? I mean, of course you got to say yes. So you got to hats off to Derrick Lewis.
Well, no.
Hats off.
Let's be fair. In the post-fight interview, Lewis said, y'all are talking about having me fight for another championship or whatever like that. I got to go home and set my black ass down, rest a little bit, and get in condition. Because he didn't plan on fighting more than one round. He thought, if I don't win this in one round, I'm out and I'm done and I don't give a shit. I don't feel like going out there and getting my ass beat for 3 rounds. And then he got lucky and landed a haymaker on the guy and knocked him out. And that's the only way he won that fight. And then he had the big my balls was hot thing. And the next thing you know, the UFC goes, hey, look, you want to be a millionaire? And he goes, hell yeah, I want to be a millionaire. He can't turn it down.
Actually,
he cannot turn that down.
Actually, he said in his interview that he did not think he would win that fight. That he was in there and that when he came back out, that he put everything he had in saving up one punch. Like he was waiting for that. He said that in his interview. He said he was waiting for that opening. He had nothing left. Now, I don't know if that makes him a great guy or just a smart guy. But,
what it may, let's be honest. When a guy says in the pre-fight interview, he says, well, I got 1 round in me. And then in the post-fight interview, he says, all I knew was I had 1 punch left in me. It doesn't make him smart, and it doesn't make him great. It makes him real lucky, and that's just about it. Because he got his ass beat in that fight from first to second to third, and all points in between until about 25 seconds to go when he landed a haymaker and dropped him. He was so tired that he couldn't even do the alligator crawl thing and thump his chest and all of that. He was so tired, he had to take his pants off because his balls were hot. That's hot. That's a hot man. My balls was too hot. Whoa!
It's that reverse psychology thing. Maybe he was in the ring saying, yeah, they're talking about me fighting for the title. I don't know that many people were talking about him fighting for the title before that, right? If they were talking about it, they were talking about how he's probably not on that level. So, maybe he reverted, maybe Vulcan mind tricked or Jedi mind tricked or whatever the UFC into a $1 million payday. Like I said, when the phone rings, Dana White too, Dana's going to ask for a favor here. He's going to ask you to fight for a world title on short notice at the top of Madison Square Garden card. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. You do got to listen to Dana. I mean, Dana, at the end of the day, has taken care of a lot of people. And this is one of those spots where, not everybody gets that chance.
True,
you know what
true.
I mean? So I think he did the right thing by saying
okay.
that. I think Cormier deserves a lot of credit for taking a fight because
Daniel Cormier deserves a lot of credit for being the greatest heavyweight champion besides Randy Couture that the UFC has ever seen. But that's a different story.
I'm a DC fan. I
love the man.
Derrick Lewis was in the news. I like DC with Derrick Lewis being in the news, saying he's going to take me lightly and stuff. He came back. He said, "No, Derrick, you're 9-1, and you've got a lot of knockouts and stuff, and I'm not taking you lightly at all." And the fact is Cormier deserves credit because the Lesnar fight might be at risk here, and it's not officially signed or on the board yet. So they're taking their champion, putting him in against a guy whose skill set he matches up well against.
Okay.
I mean,
so we've got 2 weeks before that fight happens, right?
Less, yeah.
November 1st. A little less, but okay. But I want you to go through and tell me what happens in that fight. In your synopsis, what happens with DC? And my balls was hot, man.
Well, I mean, the thing is the Russian who was beating up Derrick Lewis made a mistake, gave him a little bit of room at the end of the fight, and the guy got off and did what he did. And, until Cormier makes a mistake like that, I'm going to keep him on the level of a guy who can apply the pressure for 25 minutes. If it goes that long, he'll put him chest to chest. He's not going to make a mistake and be there for one of those big punches. He's good, at getting his range in. That the wrestling helps, and he's not going to be there. If Derrick Lewis is counting on Daniel Cormier to make a mistake, anybody can make a mistake.
No doubt about that.
Cormier is a pretty good guy with a pretty good skill set to fight a mistake-free fight. All he's got to do is get chest to chest, put him on the floor, hold him, and beat him up a little bit, and you're winning rounds, and that's getting the job done. In that, apply more pressure, chest to chest up against the fence, and beat the fuck out of him, take him to the floor and finish him. Daniel Cormier is capable of that too. And if Lewis is looking to get that one big punch in again, well, he just reminded everybody what happens, and that serves against him because his chance of doing it twice in a row, the old catch lightning in a bottle twice or whatever you want to call it. The percentage chances I think are lower to do that to Daniel Cormier, right? So Cormier still at risk. The Lesnar fight, he's putting it on the line as a champion, and as he stated, he's only going to fight a couple of times more. He wants a couple of paydays. He deserves a couple of paydays. Here, Lewis comes in off a spot that got him viral. Hopefully, they're both cashing in a nice payday, and then he moves into the Lesnar fight, and then maybe we're looking at Cormier retiring. He's also gone the other way and say he doesn't want to give up the light heavyweight belt. So there's a lot going on with Cormier, but what I see Cormier is going to want to do is I see he's going to want to ice Jon Jones. I think he's going to want to avoid and not want to fight him. Although on the competitor side, it could always happen, and for the money and stuff. I'm not saying he's ruling it out 100%, and I'm not saying this is a ploy or a tactic, but I'm saying that Cormier's earned a spot to look disgusted at Jon Jones. He's earned the right to be disgusted by this guy because of the drug test, things like that. I mean, the guy does have 2 wins over him, but there are always asterisks and things like that. He's the only guy he can't beat. So as a competitor, he may want to beat him, but I think he also wants to send a message. I think he's, as you've always been a DC, fan. The guy's a good man. You know what I mean? It's like he has thoughts about the sport and about purity of competition and, you know, about 70 drug tests and being woken up at home and things like that. You know, the guy, when he says stuff, it brings gravitas. You know what I mean? And
he means it.
He's not dealing with Jon Jones right now.
Okay, so we walk through it. Best case scenario, Cormier puts him up against the fence. By round 3, he's got him so exhausted, he really can't handle anymore. He gives up his back. You know, either strikes or Cormier goes more classy and kind of rear naked choke, finishes him, something like that. You know, of course, anything can happen. I understand that, but that's probably what we're going to get in that. And that's okay, and it'll be an entertaining fight to some degree for whatever that's worth. I'm not sure I'd pay for it on pay-per-view, but whatever. So now comes the sneaky part. There's this whole list of different people that are standing in line for light heavyweight and for heavyweight. So you got Lesnar, who can't fight until the new year anyway, right? And that's got something to do with USADA, I think. And I don't know what else. Something with the contract.
He was under the last time he fought in UFC. He blew hot, and he was under a suspension that I think was retroactive and this, that, or the other thing, but ends towards the end of this year, early next year.
Okay, so they've got it. DC's kind of looking at, you know, sure, I'll take the payday because this looks like, let's face it, on paper, I mean, this looks like a pretty easy fight for DC. Really, it does. I mean, the odds are going to be insurmountable, and if he happens to catch him, man, you know, somebody's going to make a lot of money because the odds are going to be crazy. But more than likely, DC is going to go out there. He's going to smoke him for 3 rounds, and it's going to be done. They're not going to go 5. I don't think he's got it in him to go 5, and it's a good warm-up for DC. So then we look at this different path, and we say, does DC fight Lesnar then? What happens if DC gets knocked out by chance? Where do we go from there? Where does Jon Jones play into this? Because he's finally eligible again, or will be at some point here quickly, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, all right, let's get to wrapping things up for you here. All right, first of all, I'm gonna draw 2 scenarios, I think, that the UFC can play in, and you can judge, you know, which one's going to make more money. And, you know, we already know from many of our conversations whether we agree with it or not, but sometimes when all things are all equal and then you follow the money trail, and you're always going to get what the fights are going to be. You know what I mean? So with the McGregor stuff, we've seen it. So, you know, anyway. So, is the best case scenario that Derrick Lewis gets his moment in the spotlight, gets a payday for being a trooper, gets beat by DC wins, and moves on to the Lesnar fight, and Brock Lesnar's return against Daniel Cormier, the decorated champion, is a mega fight. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to see that. So that's a big fight. Another win for Cormier. Yeah, it elevates him a little bit. It gives him momentum, I guess.
What happens in that fight?
Who? Lesnar and Cormier?
Yeah.
Well, let's get to that later.
Okay.
So, Derrick Lewis could drop a fly in the ointment and knock out Daniel Cormier, right? Now, at that point, then the UFC is really going to have to deal with a lot of stuff, including personalities and stuff. Because if I were Brock Lesnar, I'd love to fight Derrick Lewis. Because in terms of a matchup, Lesnar's a guy who doesn't want to exchange. He's shown it in all of his fights. He just doesn't have that boxer's instinct of taking a shot and exchanging and getting into that. He wants to get inside, and he wants to control you, and he don't want to exchange. He wants to fuck you up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So is he capable of bringing a guy like Derrick Lewis to the floor a couple of times a round or once every round, holding him there and beating him up? He's got to think he can do that to Derrick Lewis. So his best, of all the potential opponents for Lesnar, Derrick Lewis is probably the darkest horse to ever get that fight. But if he knocks out Cormier, Lesnar is going to say, I got a real shot at being the world champion again. I don't think I got a better shot at it. He's got to think I'm big. I'm going to beat Cormier. Maybe as wrestlers, they're around the same age. Maybe they've even competed or know people compete against each other and have some type of mental edge. There may be something there among equals, and then you're talking about a guy 60 pounds bigger.
Yeah.
So Cormier is a whole different animal, a whole different ballgame. And Lesnar's also got to know from his wrestling, you can run into a fucking pit bull who's 50 pounds lighter than you in the heavyweight division that you're not going to get by. You know what I mean? Size isn't always, a trump card when it comes to that.
That doesn't determine everything.
Cormier's eaten up guys Lesnar's size his entire life. You know what I mean? Especially at wrestling. So, but he's taking the fight. That's the one that everybody thought we were going to get. Lewis has to put Lesnar in a situation where he's going to actually have the belt and maybe extend this ride for 2 fights more than just the one and done. Lewis takes the win. Does Lewis Lesnar trump Cormier Lesnar as a fight? As a flash in the pan, the UFC is going to put all their weight behind it. We may be looking at a pretty big fight, and we're going to see that my balls are hot. Soundbite again and again, and the whole crazy stuff. But they'll make it a big fight. But I don't know. I think Cormier Lesnar, with the Cormier being a decorated long-time champion and only beaten by one guy and stuff, I think it's a bigger fight. I think it's a bigger challenge for Lesnar as well. So I think Derrick Lewis will come in second if he wins in terms of money. So what could the UFC do there that they could make? They could make Derrick Lewis wait. Maybe he gets a payday later, and then Lesnar's still waiting for an opponent. Cormier would probably be out of the Lesnar fight. They could do Lesnar Cormier. I guess they could ask them, but that has no appeal after Cormier lost to. So then Jon Jones becomes an issue. Jones is booked right now to fight on December 29th, and he's fighting Alexander Gustafsson. To me,
he's kind of the only person he can fight.
Yeah, Gustafsson was the guy. They've got a history. Gustafsson's a guy who's a real pro, so he's going to come in with his A game. He's got the mindset and things like that. I just don't think that he's kept up with the Joneses. And I know that's a cute little play on words and stuff, but I think Gustafsson's had his ups and downs, and there are questions now.
Are you saying that the first fight with Jones and Gustafsson, where it was really questionable to a lot of people that Jones won that fight, are you saying that when that fight happens this time, that it's not the equal fight?
Yeah, no, I think Jones is improved, and I don't think Gustafsson. I can't say Jones is not. Improved is a hard way. It's hard to quantify this because I don't mean it's all improving. Like, hey, he's so much technically better, he's going to submit him now, or anything like that. But I think his body hasn't been through the banging up. Gustafsson's body hasn't held up. They're aging. So now once you're aging and your body hasn't held up, I think Jones, even though the Cormier fights were tough fights and stuff, his body held up real well. It's not like he actually, took beatings or has been knocked out or anything like that. So I think that causes a separation, even though both guys are probably technically better fighters now than they were the first time. I think the difference, the skill level is now on Jones' side much more firmly.
Okay, so
I think what happens here is you could almost, and Gustafsson has been a victim of this in the past, right? You could almost say, if Derrick wins, Derrick Lewis, I almost called him Derrick Coleman, Derrick wins, then could the UFC undo the Jones-Gustafsson fight for December 29th and do Jones and Lesnar either
much more interesting fight
at the Super Bowl in February?
Good God, that sells a billion. That sells a billion tickets. That's it's outlandish.
And both coming off a layoff, Lesnar, again, and Lesnar's so much bigger, and Jones still, to me, this is the open question about Jon Jones, right? I don't think his physical talent is a question. I don't think what's there, but I think you're talking about a guy who went from upstate New York, which brings you, a certain hardworking, humble mentality that got him to where he is. And I think he became a superstar, and I think he liked it. And so I'm the ego check of Jon Jones is what I want to see here. And I want to see where his ego's at. Is he coming back just to compete, or is he coming back to take back everything that's been taken away from him? And does he still have that? I think that's what we're going to get with Jones. And I think at the end of the day, that we may still have a guy who may give us problems with extracurricular activities, steroids or drugs, or running over, or car accidents where women's arms get broken, or that he flees from, grabs cash from his car and runs from. I mean, he was making good decisions, and I think, if his ego's not checked, that you're still susceptible that he might make some questionable decisions.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think Jones and Lesnar is the biggest fight there. Both coming off a layoff. Lesnar, is going to have to impose his size. I saw where Jon Jones said it would take him 2 years. This is one of those reasons you question the ego. I saw where said it would take him 2 years of training, and he'd compete with the elite boxers of his time, right now. You're talking Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, the heavyweight guys. If he wanted to actually prove that, he might make a lot of money. But again, it all has to do with matchmaking, right? If Jon Jones is so good, and after 2 years he wants to box, put him in against Tony Bellew. Let's see exactly what he can do against a guy who's an absolute dog, who's nowhere near the athlete of Jones, and who won't give two fine fucks about the athlete that Jon Jones is. He's already faced dudes bigger, stronger, and faster, and he's a dog. So start there. And he's also a cruiserweight world champion. So it's not like I'm putting him in against a guy that isn't going to bring attention and money to Jones. It's going to bring him respect. It's not like I'm finding, an average guy who's just a dog. No, this is an elite guy. Jon Jones said elite. Put him in against this guy and see if he gets through a boxing match.
But Jones has got a big enough frame, too, that if you can remove Jones from USADA for a year, because, I mean, that's the real difference here, okay? I don't like to bullshit around about IEPs and stuff. If you can remove Jones from USADA for 1 year, that guy can be as big. He can probably be as big as Brock Lesnar. I mean, he's just got the body for it. Now. He is an athletic specimen in every single way. Whether heavy muscle burns heavy fuel, and whether or not that slowed him down or not, I don't know. But he may be right. He might be able to step up, and he could, with his range, with his ability and his speed.
No. Physically, he's got the tools, but boxing is very much a game like wrestling, where if you're going in against guys who've been doing it since they were 8 or 10 years old, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage.
Definitely.
And if you don't recognize that, it's an incredible disrespect.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
why I picked Tony Bellew, because if you remember heavyweight David Haye in boxing, Haye was the world champion. He's been retired for 5 years, came back, knocked out 3 dudes with undefeated records, and went into a fight with Tony Bellew. Yep. And Bellew knocked him out. Mm-hmm. And then Haye said, all right, I did everything wrong, I'm going to come back. And then Bellew did it to him again.
Yeah.
That's boxing. That's a guy 5 years who we know from South Florida, where he trained many times. I've heard through boxing grapevines that the guy's the type of guy who goes home when the gym's air conditioner is broken. And that's not Tony Bellew. Is Jon Jones the type of guy that goes home when the air conditioner is broken out there in Arizona? I don't know. His ego may not want to sweat anymore because he's got a nice shirt on. I don't know, but that's the question. Is he willing to put in all the work, or does he think, where's the ego with Jon Jones? It's still an open question. And that's what you see. But I think with Lesnar and Jones, you'd get the biggest fight possible. So I think DC sits and faces the winner of that.
Yeah, never in the history of the sport of MMA has there been a bigger enemy of himself than Jon Jones. And that's... It broke a lot of people's heart, because a lot of people looked at him as, he was the GOAT, and they really wanted to hang their hat on him and say that he's the greatest of all time, And yeah, there's Mighty Mouse, and you can make that argument too. But Jon Jones is it, and then USADA again, and then the crash, and the cocaine, and there's, like you said, there's always an asterisk to it, and he's his own worst enemy, and I just don't see that really changing. And even if it does change at this point, he's old enough now that he doesn't have a lot left in him, no matter how you look at it. I mean, does he 4 fights? Does he have that?
Jones?
Yeah.
Oh no, I think Jones is right around 30. If he wanted to, he could do 15 MMA fights more. If he was
high level championship fights.
And if he wanted to cross over and do boxing like McGregor did, and you start extending it, yeah, we won't see him in the ring, 30 times, 40 times for the rest of his life. But when you get it, it'll always be a big fight if the guy can keep his act up. The physicality, he's got the tools that make you interested, right? We've seen things from him that make me think, in boxing and stuff. Yeah, let him try it. I think it's a disrespect to the boxers. I think if you put him in, like I said, with certain guys, I think it's wrong. But I think somebody might take the showman's perspective of it. Put him in, how about they can put him in with David Price, a guy who's 6'10" and has a chin like has a glass head. So yeah, he'd probably knock David Price out if Price, he's bigger and slower. He's gonna get hit one time in the 12 rounds, and that's all it takes. Right. So it just depends on how you want to matchmake Jon Jones, right? It's all about that. But I think he's gonna want that. He's gonna want to be taken care of. He's gonna want the treatment and stuff like that. So we'll see what we get with Jon Jones. So the prediction here is DC against Derrick Lewis. And by the way, you said IUDs, not PEDs, and it's not uterine devices.
You know what I'm talking about.
We're talking PEDs, right? But no one's stuffing anything in their vaginas that I know of. But
you never know.
If Daniel Cormier and Derrick Lewis goes right, Cormier probably gets the Lesnar fight, and we get Jones and Gustafsson. If Lewis breaks through and beats DC, what could happen, even circumstances and stuff like that, Gustafsson gets an injury, and Jones is free, and then all of a sudden you got Jones and Lesnar as a possibility again. And back when Lesnar's return was just being talked about, that was the fight. I mean, it's always been Jones and Lesnar that's been the mega money fight. DC, at the end of the day, as great as he is and as much work as he's put into putting that Jon Jones behind him, the Lesnar DC fight is smaller than a Jones Lesnar fight.
Well, I think that about wraps it up. Listen, don't forget to subscribe below. Chadillac at the Cage Rage Podcast, Miguel at the Cage Rage Podcast. You can email us. You can ask us all kinds of questions. You can catch us on Facebook. You can catch us on YouTube. The Cage Rage Podcast on YouTube. TheCageRagePodcast.com. Whatever I'm missing, I don't know. Subscribe below. Hit the little red button. Help us out. Spread us around. Share us. Tell everybody about us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what we need to fix, what we can make better, and what we can't. And if we can fix it, we will. If we can't, you're just out of luck. Sorry. Anything else, Miguel?
No, always a lot of fun. And, when you get a chance to, if you go back and check out our Jack Johnson podcast on the boxing side, hitting a little bit of the history and stuff. Had a lot of fun doing it, and we definitely talked about some subjects that aren't on most podcasts out there, So give us a chance with those two. And we'll be here, Chad, always, podcast number 1 million on the way.
Yeah, hey, that reminds me. I almost forgot to tell everybody. The historic Jack Johnson, Donald Trump podcast. I believe we had to split that in two, right, Aaron? Yes. So we split that in two because we kind of went off on a I kind of went off on a tirade about Donald Trump and our president, Donald Trump. And but he did pardon Jack Johnson, and that's a pretty interesting thing to have done, and to have gotten no press, no media coverage over it all. So we talked about Jack Johnson. Miguel's an archivist, And so he went through it in great detail. It was a fascinating podcast, and those who've seen it so far have absolutely loved it, and we've had rave reviews on it. So go check that out, share it, tell us what you think. All you people out there who love Donald Trump and hate Donald Trump, let us know what you think. I mean, is the guy good for the sport of MMA and good for the sport of boxing? You tell us. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think about it anymore. Hey, hit the subscribe button below. I believe we're out of here. Anything else, BL?
Namaste.
Namaste.